There was a show on at the Royal Alexander, and they weren't doing good business, so they advertised for amateurs to do the matinees so they could bring a crowd in. And they had 400 who auditioned, and they took 10 of them. And out of the 10, both Alan and I were taken, but we didn't know each other, and we weren't dancing together. But during one of the days that we were down to do the matinee, which we did, I think 4 matinees during the time of the run, he said, "I'm going down to practice." And I said, "Oh, I'd like to practice too. I'm going to come down too." So we started showing each other steps, and we got along beautifully. And the next day he phoned and he said, "Would you like to be my partner, Blanche?" Well, of course, I was delighted. I practically jumped through the phone. I said, "Oh, I would love to be your partner, Alan." But he already had a partner. He said, "Yes, but she's studying to be a school teacher and she won't practice as much." So he said, "I told her that I'm going to dance alone." And I said, "Well, if you dance with me, you're not dancing alone." He said, "No," he said, "but I danced around the house all by myself and I don't like it." So he said, "Now I'm going to dance with you." Our first job we got was in Montreal at the Glen Lee Club. At least it was it would be close to Ottawa. It was, in fact, it was in Hull, Quebec, and it was called the Glen Lee Golf Club. And the dance team let them down. And the agent in Montreal, Roy Cooper, phoned us and he said, "I've heard that you're pretty good, and I have a job for you." Well, of course, and it was going to be for 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks, not just a job each other night, And we were thrilled. We said, "Oh, we'd love to do it." We played down there on and off, and we used to walk. Some of the terrible clubs down in the East End where, they threw beer bottles when you were dancing, and you had to be good at ducking things. And we did 3 shows a night. And so we used to hold hands and walk between shows, walk back up to the center of Montreal to Murray's restaurant, and then we go across the road to the Mount Royal, which was the big hotel, and they had dance teams there and pictures in the lobby. And we used to hold hands and stand in the lobby and look at the pictures and say, "One day we'll dance here." We opened the upstairs area for them. They were in the main floor, then they changed to upstairs. We played there 5 times eventually. The captain of the Navy show saw Al and I dancing at the Samovar Club, which was a really nice club, and he said, "Please ask the young couple to come out. I want to talk to them." So we went out. He said, "Sit down." And he said, "Have a drink." And we said, "Well, we'll have a Coca-Cola." And he banged the table and he said, "How old are you?" Oh, and I think I was 19, Alan was 18 by then. And he said, "The perfect age." And then he told us about his show. He said, I'm building this big show with 150 performers, 25-piece orchestra. We're going to play across Canada." And he said, I imagine go to Europe." He said, "Would you like to join my show?" And we, of course, at 18 and 19, we went, "Oh, we would love to join your show." And he said, "Well, there is a catch. You have to join the Navy." The polio had hit my right leg. So they said, you won't dance again. And they said, "You'll be lucky if you walk." I said, "Are you stupid?" I said, "I've danced since I was 7. I can't picture my life without dancing." So they said, "Well, good luck." Anyway, of course, as I say, the polio hit me in September 46, and in September 47 we were opening in a West End show in London. The Queen and King came, and it was like you couldn't believe it was an opening. Everything was pitch black like it was during the war. Like while we were playing at the Hippodrome, we had V1s and V2s fly over and air raids, and the air raid, and the captain told us, he said, "There's one thing," he said, "you're in the senior service." He said, "The show starts at A and goes to Z." He said, "Whether there's air raids," he said, "if the stage gets blown away, you're excused. Or if the audience get blown away, you're excused. Otherwise, you do the show from A to Z." So when there used to be the air raids, a lot of the people would leave the theater. Well, of course, we kept performing. And it was so funny because a lot of the people who did stay, who were in the back, would come forward and sit in the better seats. But the rest would go to the air raid shelter. We played at the Plaza in New York, which was the place called the Cotillion Room. We played there 3 times. And we played in Washington and Chicago and Los Angeles, San Francisco, you name it. We played all the big hotels across the states. And while we were out west, I think at the Mark Hopkins in San Francisco, we got a telegram from our agent in England saying, "I've got another West End show for you. Are you interested?" And that was with Tommy Trinder, called Fun in the Fair. So, of course, we loved dancing over there. The audiences were so nice, and we really, really enjoyed it. So we said, yes. We decided that we would start a family. So by then, TV was starting in 1952, and that's when they gave us the first contract. And the contract read, when they sent it to Ottawa, that Alan and Blanche Lund will appear every second week, and Blanche will continue to choreograph with her husband if she's not well. So they sent a contract back to say, "Is Blanche Lund not expecting to be well?" And they sent a contract back, "Blanche Lund wants to get pregnant." They said that Ottawa had never had such a funny contract. And so so in 1952, we did the show, and I did get pregnant, and then it was in the he was born in June, and that was the year Al and I started to do the Canadian National Exhibition, which we did for 14 years. I did choreography with him for 2 years, and then by then I had the 2 children, and I said, "No, I don't. I'd rather be home. You do the choreography. I'll come to do our own number, and I choreographed that with you." But I said, "I'm not going to. I don't want to be away from the kids, you know." So he took over, and then eventually he was the director of the shows at the exhibition. In 1964. Wait a minute, it was 64. It's 1965. They asked Mavermore decided that Alan would be the perfect director to do Anne of Green Gables. So he went to Charlottetown, and of course at that point he went in April, and Jeffrey was born April the 1st. That's my last son. He was born April the 1st, and Alan in the middle of April left for Charlottetown, and I didn't go because, you know, I had the other 3 boys and Jeffrey. So he did, but that was the first year he did Anne of Green Gables. And then from then on, every summer, I would go back with him, and he would be directing, and he directed and choreographed all the shows for 22 years. I always used to say, I think that people are sometimes supposed to meet, and they're like 2 people, and when they join, they're like one. And I said I always felt that was the case, Alan. Once we started dancing together, it just seemed that we were always supposed to be there together. When I look back at my life now, like the fact that I'm dizzy and unfortunately use a walker, and it bugs me no end, but I say to myself, yes, but I did have the pleasure of doing all that, and I loved every step my husband and I did. Even now I often say, "Oh honey, if you could only come back and we could just do one step."